All right, we are up and running. So thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Lauren and I were talking about this a while back, and it was we always talked about, okay, I got my oils, now what? And she mentioned this kind of a 201 class where we dive a little bit deeper into the books and get a better understanding of how to use them. She kind of slapped me upside the face the other last week, actually, because
Okay.
it's something I usually do, but Elaine was feeling off and we did an ITOV scan for her. And the oils we got back didn't seem to fit like what we thought the oil should be for what she was exhibiting. So when we were talking to Lauren about it, she was like, well, did you actually look up what the oils that popped up on the ITOV scan were? And I was like, no, I just general, kind of basic. She goes, well, what was one of the oils? Let's dive a little deeper into it. And as she was teaching me how to read the book, it started to make more sense. So point taken from that was that even though we get when I do those readings and I don't get the oils that I should think I should be getting back, the oils that do pop up, I need to dive a little bit deeper and find out why those are being the ones that are recommended. Because more often than not, the machine might be a little bit more dead on than I am or than I think I am. So, Lauren, this is really good timing for me, and I think this is going to be really helpful for the other folks that have been doing this a while or even just getting started to kind of learn how to use our book. So this is cool. So take it away, buddy.
All right. Um, so I think you did a great job of explaining already why you need a book. Sometimes you have an idea of what an oil might do, like, oh, I know wild orange is going to wake me up because we did that as the wake up blend with peppermint when we had the class. But there's lots of other things wild orange can do. Um, I think we use wild orange in a rollerball for digestive issues too.
Yeah.
But that's not where it stops. So when you first start using oils, you're if you're anything like me, unless you're raised by an aromatherapist or in a house where this was just what you did and you understand all of it, you're like, wow, this is something totally new and different. So I really liken the use of the oils and requiring a book to cooking. I moved out of my parents' home and I got married when I was 18. And my younger sister loved to cook. I was like, can it go in a microwave or in a pot of water? Because if it can't, I'm going to burn it or it's not going to be good. So she knew that when I moved out, I needed a cookbook. And my cookbook had the different types of meats, it had the different meals I could make, it had desserts, it had all these things like classified and explained, even to where like there was a picture of a cow and what all the cuts were. So I would understand that a loin and a roast maybe aren't the same thing, because I would have just picked something red from the grocery store and thrown it in my cart and been like, yeah, this will work. So when you get your oils book, you're doing it's the same idea. Like you are learning how to cook for the first time, but you're just using oils. Um, excuse me. Um, when you have a resource like Modern Essentials, and I have the 11th edition, so when I talk about page numbers, it's going to be in relation to the 11th edition. Um, it goes over right in the beginning, just like your cookbooks, like your Betty Crocker, the basics of essential oils. So you might have like the basics of cooking, like what are your food groups? What's considered a meat? What can you make with beef and pork? And it breaks it down. Then it has individual essential oils, and that starts on page 42. And that's where you really start delving into what can each of these oils do? Like what can I do with ground burger? I can make a meatloaf, I can make a meatballs, I can do all these different things. Um, because doTERRA has so many things, there's also the blends that they already have. That starts on page 146. Then there's supplements and personal care and spa. And then there's application and depth. So maybe I know that I can make a meatloaf, but I really don't know how to make a meatloaf. So I need to go to the section on meatloaf to figure out what all I need from a meatloaf. I need, well, I don't know how you guys make it, but I know I need breadcrumbs, I need some eggs, um, I might need some flour or some kind of filler. I definitely need meat. I need to have my oven preheated. Sometimes when I'm making something, it might list the ingredients all at the top of the recipe, but I need to be careful about how I combine them. So I might need to save like the ketchup and the Worcestershire for drizzling over the top of the meatloaf instead of mixing it all in the beginning with all the other ingredients. So when you're looking at your essential oil recipe, you want to read through the whole thing, all the instructions before you just go throwing everything together. So you want to do a good job of reading. I'm sorry. um, if you go to your, excuse me, your Modern Essentials book, and I don't know, Angela, what do you want to look up?
Are you looking up an ailment or are you looking up an oil?
Let's do an ailment.
Okay. How about a cough?
Hmm. What a beautiful idea.
Great choice.
We'll see if I've been doing the right stuff. So coughs. In the 11th edition, coughs is on page 295. So the first thing it tells you is what a cough is. It's a sudden explosive release of air from the lungs to help clear an excess of mucus, an irritant, or other materials from the airway. So as you're reading about the ailments, you can figure out, like, is this really what I have or not? Am I looking up the wrong thing? Then it gives you a couple simple solutions. So the first one is a drop of eucalyptus, a drop of lemon, and a tablespoon of honey. And then it says to mix them with warm water and drink slowly. Well, if you're using your cough mix, you want to make sure that the eucalyptus is actually something you can ingest before you go putting it in your mouth. So this is why I say read through the whole recipe first, know what you're mixing. Eucalyptus, if you go to the back of the book, it has X's over it. You can't take it internally, or at least it's not recommended. So this type of eucalyptus, it might be the eucalyptus that's an On Guard. So that's where you need to take some time to do a little bit of research, like read the recipe and then go back and read through the oils. Or there's another solution, combine 1 drop of eucalyptus, melaleuca, and lemon with a teaspoon of jojoba oil and apply over chest and back. So what I want to do now is I have my recipe for cough, and I want to go back and I want to look to see what do those oils do and why would they be helpful for a cough. This helps me understand my oils a little bit more too. So in the Modern Essentials book, if I go to page 70 on the 11th edition, it talks about eucalyptus. And under properties, it has analgesic, antibacterial, anticatarrhal, which has to do with clearing mucus, anti-infectious, anti-inflammatory. So there you've got airway swelling. It might help with airway swelling. Antiviral, insecticidal, and expectorant, meaning it's going to help you actually like bring up whatever mucus you are or catarrh you're coughing up. So I can see right away why eucalyptus would be recommended for cough. Then what was next? Melaleuca. All right, melaleuca is page 106. So here I can see it's analgesic, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-infectious, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antiparasitic, a strong antiseptic, it's antiviral, it's a decongestant, something that would also be helpful, right, for me. It's a digestive, which means that it helps with the digestive process. And just a little aside, when you have like postnasal drip and you find that the digestive blends are helping to break down the mucus that's going into your stomach. Yum. It's an expectorant, an immune stimulant. So I want to make sure my immune system is going to kick in and get whatever is in my body out. It's also an insecticidal, a neurotonic, so that means it's good for the nervous system. It's a stimulant, and it helps with tissue regeneration. And then the last one was lemon, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in your Modern Essentials 11th edition, it's page 94. And here we've got anti-cancer, antidepressant, antiseptic, antifungal, antioxidant, antiviral. It's an astringent, it's invigorating, refreshing, and tonic. If you look under common primary uses, it also has lymphatic cleansing as a property for lemon, which generally we think of lemon as a cleanser. But I know my lymph nodes are swollen, and the recommendation here for the cough is to apply it over the chest and back, but I might actually start at my neck since I know that the lemon's good for lymphatic drainage, and I might start to push down on my lymph system to try and get it to drain. So that way I'm not having so much swelling here in my neck and discomfort. So I can start out with a simple recipe and I can mix it as it is, I can throw it on like it is, or I can go back and I can look at each of those ingredients and digest them a little bit and look to see, okay, is there some way that I can use this that's a little bit more powerful? Like I said, like doing a little bit of lymphatic massage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Really good.
Okay. Stop me if I need to slow down or go over something different. But not every recipe works for everyone, so that's why you have all these other options. So when you're looking at your book, it's basically giving you options. The primary options are going to be listed first, and then the secondary options in yellow, and the case study or like, hey, this worked for me options are going to be listed in green. It also gives you other ways to use them. So diffusion is listed here as well. They list breathe, but certainly you could diffuse that eucalyptus, melaleuca, and lemon. So it's a really simple way to use your book. And I always like to go back and look at the properties of the oils, and I like to cross-check them with the oils reference chart that's in the back. This is probably one of my favorite charts. This is how I figured out a lot of the oils, was going back and forth and using this chart. We also
how did you use that chart?
So when you that's a great question. When you go and look at eucalyptus, okay, green means it's safe without dilution. Purple is it's safe with moderate dilution. And then red is it's safe with a heavier dilution, like a tablespoon of carrier oil. When I look at eucalyptus, I can see that where it intersects with adult topical, it's green. So I don't need to dilute it if I'm an adult using it topically. But if I'm a child or I have sensitive skin, I might need to moderately dilute it. So that could be, 1 drop of eucalyptus with 1 drop of fractionated coconut oil, or it could be up to 5 mLs, like half of one of your bigger rollers, depending on how sensitive your skin is. And then if I'm pregnant, I guess their assumption is that you're an adult, so it's green. You don't need to dilute it. We're hoping you're an adult if you're pregnant. When you see eucalyptus for aromatic, it's green lights all the way across. So you can diffuse eucalyptus for any age group, any condition, and you don't necessarily have to dilute it down. But then when it goes to internal, it has those X's over it, which means you are not taking this internally. As a general rule of thumb, these oils, they're not toxic unless you take massive amounts of them. Like you would have to, for instance, wintergreen, you'd have to take 1 or more bottles of wintergreen for it to really be toxic. I'm sure you would be in a lot of discomfort if you swallowed that much wintergreen, and hopefully your body would tell you to stop if you started accidentally ingesting it. But, you know, doTERRA really, they go to the side of caution when they make recommendations or when there's recommendations in books. So this particular eucalyptus that they have is not to be taken internally. But there is a different species of eucalyptus in On Guard that can be taken internally, which is why you see recommendations for On Guard to be taken internally. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
When you go to Melaleuca, it's green until you get to internal child 6 and up, and there they want you to dilute it heavily if a child's going to take it internally. And lemon is the same. So it's green until you get to child internal, and there they want you to dilute it. And there's MCT oils that you can buy that are, excuse me, that you can take internally. doTERRA's fractionated coconut oil, you can't. But you can get stuff on Amazon or Oil Life. And really, you can even use olive oil, which I don't know of any olive oil that can't be taken internally.
This is the MCT oil that she was talking about. I got it from Essential Bliss. You can find this on Amazon. It's not too bad. The price is relatively inexpensive, but this is the one that you're going to want to use if you're going to add this to your capsules and to take them internally. Now, Lauren, isn't there a benefit to actually putting this into any capsule that you take?
Yeah, so it binds to the essential oil and it makes it last longer in your body. doTERRA did some studies with lavender where they applied lavender neat and they applied lavender using carrier oil, and then they did a breathalyzer. And 2 hours after they applied just plain lavender, it was not detectable with a breathalyzer. But 4 hours later, when they did lavender and a carrier oil, the lavender was still detectable in a breathalyzer. So it helps it to stay in the body a little bit longer.
Cool.
Yep. All right, so that's going to kind of bridge us into our next book, which is The Essential Life. Very similar to Modern Essentials, but Modern Essentials, I say, is my beginner. This is like my essential oils ABCs, and now we're doing words and sentences with this one. So it goes by the, you can look up each oil individually. You can look up different complaints. You can also look up oils by body systems, which is nice, or by disease classification. So you can look up like autoimmune, and autoimmune is, let me tell you here. It starts on page 232. And it walks you through the different oils that you can use to help with autoimmune issues. It walks you through the properties that are related to those issues, things that you would want to address. It gives you different supplements that you can use for those issues with doTERRA. So you can start to personalize or individualize whatever your routine is based on what you have in that category. And then it will also give you remedies, which are recipes. So on page 234, they have Hashimoto's, and they have like 3 different protocols for Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So they have 3 different things that you can try if you're experiencing some issues related to your thyroid and related to Hashimoto's. And the one thing I really like about this book that sets it apart is on page 468 of the 5th edition. It has this oils properties chart. I don't know if you can see that, but it's awesome. So in homeopathy, which is different from essential oils, but you'll understand why I'm talking about this in a minute, we do this thing called repertoirizing, which is like an incredibly clumsy word. But basically, you tell me what your issues are. So you could have like a headache that comes on suddenly in the morning. It's worse with I don't know if anyone here is still on their menstrual cycle. I might be the only one. I'm not sure. Angela, are you? How's your menses?
Well,
Yeah. But anyway,
the
like,
rabbit's in critical condition.
it's a critical, okay. So, you can have all of these things that describe your headache or your migraine. And then you go to what they call the Materia Medica, which is kind of like an essential oils type book. It's a reference. And the Materia Medica lists out your major complaint, like headache, and it'll list out all the things that could possibly work for headache. So I might have 7 different things that could work for headache. Then I'll look for headache, upon awakening, and it might have 3 things. And then it might have headache with menstrual cycle, and it might have 8 things. And I keep listing all of these things, and I'm just like making tick marks next to the name of the remedy as many times as it comes up. And then at the end of my repertorizing, I list out like how many times a certain remedy came up. And the one that has the highest count is the one remedy that I'm going to use if I'm a homeopath. Traditional homeopathy is you do one remedy, you do it 30 minutes apart from food, and you see if it works for that person. And the remedy is also based on some character traits. So you have them also fill out a personality. It's like a personality questionnaire to figure out what their constitutional type is. Well, with this chart, the oils properties chart, it lists out different properties for essential oils. So let's say, for example, and again, this chart's on page 468 if you're looking at your book. Let's say you want something that is analgesic and antihistamine. Okay, so you want those 2 properties in your remedy. You can go down through that chart and you can see everything that pops up as analgesic. So what I would do to make this super simple is make photocopies of these pages of this oils properties chart, and then just go straight down and highlight the properties that you want, the things that you're looking for in your oils. Then where you have the dots, draw a line across the dots and count how many times those dots intersect to see what your best option is or what your best options are. So for example, Arbor Vitae is analgesic and it's antihistamine. Basil is analgesic, but it's not antihistamine. So Arbor Vitae automatically is like the first on my list. Blue tansy fits that category. Cobaiba fits that category. Lavender fits that category. And I think that's it on that page. Let's see. It goes on to the next page too. And yarrow fits that category. So I have, 4 different oils that I can choose from that are analgesic, that'll help my pain, and they're also antihistamine. So if I'm having a histamine reaction, like you have when the pollen count's high, those are the oils that I can go to and I can see what my body best reacts to. It's also nice that I have these options because maybe I don't have yarrow. Well, what else works that way? Or do I need to combine 2 different oils so I get some synergy where both of them work better together because of the way their properties are? Any questions so far?
That's a trick that I was not, I see the chart, but I really didn't pay attention to it. So I can see where this could be really beneficial for somebody who's in the process of building their essential oil stash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're working on the oils to get the first priority of oils for their ailments. But once that's done, it's like, how do I prioritize other oils to get? You can see that you can just start coming to this chart and realize that you may already have something on hand, or maybe you need to put something on the wish list.
Mm-hmm.
But this definitely gives you a better idea of how to figure out which oils are going to be the most beneficial for you to take.
Yeah. And on page 467, so it's the page just prior to the chart, it gives definitions. No, I've been a nurse for 15 years. It was not until I started doing oils that I ever even heard the word catarrh. And I was like, how do you even say that? I don't know what that is. So there, like, don't feel dumb or anything. Like, there's a lot of words in here that I think have not been used in medicine for a long time. In old medicine, they're still used, and they're still good words. So anti-catarrhal is removes excess mucus. Let's see, what other ones was I like, what is that word? What does that mean? Carminative. I didn't know what that was. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but it reduces gas or bloating, which according to my husband, I should be on tons of these. I don't know. Cytoflactic. I love that one. That stimulates cell growth. Decongestant, we all know. Cardiotonic. So you see a lot of tonic type words, and that just means that it vitalizes that organ. So cardiotonic, neurotonic, it's going to help the vitality of that organ. Galactagogue promotes lactation. Emmenagogue regulates and induces menstruation. Nervine is beneficial effect on the nerves. Rubefacient, that's a fun one. That means it increases circulation and increases skin redness. So can you guys think of a time when you would want to use a rubefacient oil or a condition? Nobody has poor circulation anywhere.
I
Just
feel like
don't say that.
I have
What's that?
the veins in my leg, they call it venous insufficiency. So I have to rub things on my legs that would stimulate.
Yeah, that increased circulation. Absolutely.
Also,
Or
if you have damage to your skin, like if you would have a really bad bruise or something like that, I would think that increasing the circulation around that bruise or that infected area or whatever damaged area would be beneficial too.
It could. What I'm thinking more along the lines are those conditions where you can't feel your fingers and your toes because they're so cold, like Raynaud's.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, not that you're treating Raynaud's, but that's just a common ailment that I seem to know a lot of people have that, where their fingers get really cold, they turn blue. So when you look up rubefacient, you've got bergamot, birch, and black pepper. And black pepper was actually studied at a hospital for bringing the veins to the surface so they were easier to stick when people were doing IV insertions. How cool is that?
I carried that when I was on the ambulance.
Yeah. Vermifuge. Oh, those are nice goating words, because like I use these now all the time in the goat world. Vermifuge stuns parasites, and a vermicide kills parasitic worms. So those are fun properties. So when you get your oil scan,
I have to tell you, if you think those are fun properties, your nurse side is coming out. The rest of us are like, oh my gosh. You're like, oh, those are fun properties.
Oh my goodness, yes. I've learned so much about parasites since
Yeah,
I
really.
was a goat farmer. Yeah. It really makes you have an appreciation for all of them that are around us that I don't think we acknowledge enough. But there's lots of parasites out there. How many of you have had an ITOVI scan done? You guys have had them done before? Yes? Okay. So when you get your ITOVI scan, a really simple exercise you could do is go through and highlight straight across the oils that you've got and see what properties come up the most. And that's going to give you an idea as to why you got those oils. Now, the ITOVI scan has updated since it first started, so they actually class it by emotions and systems. but it doesn't class it by these types of properties. So it might say skin and hair, but it's not necessarily going to say antihistamine was your, biggest thing that came up. So it's going to help you understand more about why those oils came up for you, and then in understanding why they came up, you're going to be able to use them more effectively. All right, any questions on the charts that we went over? Have you guys done this before with the charts? Okay.
I haven't. What I've done the most was when I went to like the autoimmune system, and if I was looking for something that was specifically for analgesic or anti-arthritic, I would look at those categories to see what oils I could grab from. But I never went back to this back part to see, again, how to best optimize the oils that I had. Now I know.
Yay, now you know. All right, so then the next thing we're going to talk about is the mixing. And okay, in your Oil Life book, the Oil Life book, if you have the 5th edition, it's page 459, and it goes into blending and layering. So when you blend the oils, that's when you're mixing them together before you apply them. When you layer them, that's putting one oil on at a time. So a great example of layering is what we do in the Aroma Touch, or even what you do in Symphony of the Cells, because you're putting on one oil, it's going in a certain pattern, or you're inhaling it, and then you're moving on to the next one. You're layering them. Both techniques are phenomenal, and they're both done very intentionally in a certain order to maximize the benefits of the oils, so you get the most synergy out of what you're using. But if you don't have time to do Aroma Touch or Symphony of the Cells, and you just need something in a roller ball, you can blend it. I think we're probably all accustomed to, I'm going to look up my recipe, I'm going to put in the drops that the recipe says, throw a lid on my roller ball, and I'm just going to roll it wherever it hurts or wherever I'm looking for help with that issue. Does that sound about right, how you guys use it?
That's what I do.
All right. So if you want to get a little bit fancier, get a little bit artsy fartsy with your layering, and you're not going to go with a pre-made recipe, you want to, or with your blending, and you don't go with a pre-made recipe, you're going to want to start to understand where the oils fall in, how heavy they are, and whether they're considered a base note, a middle note, or a top note. In the Oil Life book, it goes through the different blending methods. So it'll tell you where the place in the blend is. There's a chart, first, second, third, or fourth. It will tell you characteristics of those oils. So for example, the first place in the blend is a personifier, and that might be 1 to 5% of the blend. It has a sharp, strong, and long-lasting aroma, dominant properties, and strong therapeutic action. And it lists some heavy things there, like vetiver, Roman chamomile, rose. A second oil is an enhancer. So those are things that are going to enhance your blend overall, and they're going to be a heavier percentage of that blend. And you can see some of the oils, like rose, they're listed in multiple categories. So depending on what you're going for, you may be, adding more of the same oil. A third oil is an equalizer, so that's going to help with synergy. And that's a smaller percentage. So say you have something like vetiver, say you're making a roller for anxiety. So you start out with a vetiver, which is very heavy smelling, and then you maybe enhance it with some lavender, and then you equalize it with some melissa. So the melissa is going to be more opposite the vetiver to balance things out. And then the fourth component is a modifier. It evaporates quickly and adds harmony to the blend. And you can see there's a whole list of things. And those are just examples. It's not an all-inclusive list.
Definitely not.
Yeah. I feel like even this chart, this blending method is a little bit harder to go by because I think everybody's going to have a really subjective idea of what enhances another oil's smell or what evens something out. Like to me, something like wild orange is going to balance out vetiver. Like I need something that's going to be a little bit fruity with all that muskiness. So that might be my equalizer, even though it's not listed there. I think where we can probably start out a little easier is where we go to base, middle, and top notes. So at the bottom of that page.
Can I stop you just 1 minute?
Yeah.
I was writing things down and I missed which book you're referencing.
Oh, this is the Essential Life, the Oil Life book.
Okay. I thought you were calling it something else, so I missed that. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. And it's on page
page
4.
Is it that you're on?
Page 459 of the 5th edition.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the bottom right of that, it talks about base, middle, and top notes. I think these are easier to do. So a base is going to be like your roots, your woody oils. They're really, really heavy. A base is going to be the last thing you smell. So if you're making even a diffuser blend, and let's say you're throwing in well, let's just use the example that's there. Sandalwood, ginger, cypress, and wild orange. Sandalwood's the base note. It's the heaviest. You're going to smell it last. Ginger and cypress are your middle notes, and then wild orange is your top note. So when that oscillating diffuser starts working, the first thing you're going to smell is wild orange, and then you're going to like start to smell it change a little bit. And at some point you're going to smell the cypress, and at some point you're going to smell the ginger, but the last thing to wear off is going to be the sandalwood. So you may not smell them all at the same time, and that's just how they are with the weights of the oils, which is kind of nice because then the aroma changes a little bit as time goes on and they're in the diffuser. In your Modern Essentials book, when you look up the properties of the individual oils, it will tell you if it's, what its blend classification is. Is it an enhancer or a personifier? Or is it, a modifier or an equalizer? So to give you examples here, vetiver. Vetiver, where is it? It's a base note. It gives you the scent type. It's heavy. It even rates things on intensity. So an intensity of 5 is pretty intense. And it says 5 to 20% of the blend. So it tells you how much of that oil should be included in your blend, and it should be the base. So when you're doing a rollerball, your base gets put in first. So your vetiver is going to be the first thing that goes in. Is everybody with me so far? All right, then let's say you want to put some lavender in your blend because you're going to use something for to help with anxious feelings. So lavender is a middle note. That should be 50 to 80% of the blend. It's an intensity of 2. It's floral, sweet, herbaceous, balsamic with woody undertones. Lavender is listed as an enhancer, a modifier, and an equalizer. So you start to understand why these properties are listed and how to use them. Angela, are you taking notes on the percents here? I see you.
No, I wasn't. But
Oh.
50 to 80.
That's okay.
Yep.
Well, let's just say we want to do vetiver and lavender, and those are the only 2 we want in our blend. So if we're doing just those 2.
Okay. The vetiver is between 5 and 20%.
5 and 20, and the lavender is 50 to 80%. of the blend. We need to make 100% of a blend. So we can do 20% of vetiver and 80% of lavender. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
If you do 10 drops as a blend, that's an easy to do your math. How much vetiver is that?
2 vetiver, 8 lavender.
8 lavender. Boom.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Keep it simple.
Right? Yeah, keep it simple. And then you can either repeat that base recipe until you get, half your roller full or whatever you like to use, or you can use that and then fill the rest of the roller up with fractionated coconut oil. The other thing that you want to be mindful of, so now I have like this base blend, right? This vetiver and the lavender. I want to go to the back of my book and I'm going to look to see, do I need to dilute these guys? So I look for vetiver. Vetiver I don't have to dilute. Lavender I don't have to dilute. So I can put these on as is, or I can double up my recipe and throw it in a 10 ml roller. It's really up to me. But if I were going to use oregano in that blend, you better believe I'll be diluting it with some fractionated coconut oil. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you get something done like your iTovi scan, and you're like, okay, I've got Siberian fir, I don't know, and wild orange. Let's look them up. Let's do a little exercise. So Siberian fir, that's a middle note, 50 to 80% of the blend. And wild orange, which apparently is listed as orange and not wild orange, is 5 to 20% of the blend. What's my blend going to be?
It's going to be the same percentage-wise if you use the 10 drop.
Yeah. And what goes in first?
The middle note's going to go in first, isn't it?
Yeah, if you don't have a base note, it'll be the middle note that goes in first. Yep.
Okay.
So when you're saying the base note goes in, or the base, or if it's not, there is no base, the middle note goes in first. You mean you put that in the roller ball first?
Yes.
Okay, so then the question I have is, when you said before that the carrier oil helps to keep the oils in your body longer, why wouldn't you use, because I use carrier oils in every single one of my
Mm-hmm.
so why wouldn't you, what would be the reason why you wouldn't choose to do that?
Personal preference.
Okay.
Some people actually prefer to use the oil straight. They think I know somebody that uses oregano straight for warts and stuff like that. They didn't dilute it at all. They were able to tolerate it. Me, oregano, it's getting diluted every time I use it. I don't care what I'm using it for. But that individual was fine using that undiluted.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about, it doesn't stay on the body long. It flashes off really quick, but they were getting the results that they were looking for, so they continued using it undiluted.
I rarely use undiluted things if I'm using just an oil by itself, but when I use a blend, I have a tendency to always dilute it. So, for example, I don't go anywhere without ginger because I have a bit of issues with my tummy. I have for forever, so I have it right here, sitting right here.
Love it. Love it.
Rub into my tummy. I don't even ever mix it into a roller ball. I don't even know why. It's just that I remember hearing somewhere along the line that, this same thing that Lauren said tonight about the carrier oil helping, you know, to keep it in your body longer.
It keeps it in the body longer, and it helps it when you apply it topically. It helps so it doesn't flash off so quickly and gets more absorbed into the body.
All right.
I have a question now, like now that you've shown that, that's really interesting, this percentage. And I don't know if you can see my face or you just see the picture of my family.
You see the whole fam dance.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. It's really weird.
They're good looking.
So anyway, like for spearmint, it says odor top note 5 to 20%. So is that just based on your preference of how strong spearmint you want? Because that's quite a difference.
Yeah, that and how many other oils you're using. So if you're using a blend that has like 5 different oils and 3 of them are top notes, you're going to have to divvy up that top note space with those oils.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, and spearmint's one of those stronger smelling oils too. So it may be some personal preference as to how powerful you want that smell to be.
It is powerful. It's like become one of my favorites though, for some strange reason.
Odd. You should dig a little bit deeper into spearmint because there's some wonderful properties that I didn't know about until somebody presented it to us, and I was like, holy cow, spearmint does a lot of things. And it's one of those that when I remember, I put a little bit on the back of my neck just to help me get through the day and help with a few other things. So dig a little deeper into that spearmint, and I think you'll be surprised by
emotionally. Yeah, emotionally, spearmint is the oil of communication.
Huh.
Which I think I always found that interesting because you know, sometimes you just throw certain oils on, you're not really sure why. And I had done that before I got up and started public speaking about the oils. And then I read that it was the oil of communication. I was like, oh, isn't that appropriate?
Oh.
So Lauren, we have just about 10 minutes left, and that's where we're going. Absolutely.
All right. So this last book is my new fave. Yeah, Advanced Oil Magic. It takes you through, like with the other oils, it takes you through the individual oils, it takes you through the blends. It gives you top uses for them, and it's very practical, but in the middle of the book, it gives you all these protocols. There's protocol pages. And there's protocol pages for things like acid reflux, allergies, yeah, autism, Lyme disease. Like there's some pretty heavy hitters in here as far as the protocols. And I'm just gonna go through a couple of them, like the one for colds, okay? If you have the book, it's page 187, and it says colds, respiratory infection resulting in excess mucus, cough, and sinus issues. And the description of what the recommendations do are basically provide antiviral and respiratory support, and it gives you duration of use. So for cold, something simple, it's 5 to 10 days. Take 2 soft gels of the On Guard soft gels 3 times a day. Use On Guard black pepper and Melaleuca 2 drops each on the bottoms of your feet 3 times a day. You could put that in a roller, or you could do them individually. Respiratory blend, that's breathe. Rub onto chest and diffuse as needed. And then take your Vitality Trio. At the bottom, it gives you additional oils for support. Rosemary is like any of the herbs are really good at just fighting off germs. Cardamom's excellent for respiratory support. Lime is really good for sinus support. And then Mito 2 Max is the energy and stamina complex. So of course you're always drained when you don't feel good, when you have a cold. So it's really practical information. It gives you protocols that you can follow, just like the doctor giving you a script saying take 1 antibiotic 3 times a day with food. You know, it's very, very similar in how that's scripted. But then I want you to look at Lyme disease. If you have the book, Lyme disease is on page 195. And I use this one because Lyme's disease is very difficult to get rid of, if you can ever get rid of it. It takes an incredible amount of work to manage. And this book describes it as an inflammatory disease caused by bacteria transmitted by ticks. The description of what your protocol does is it induces the parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic is your rest and digest nervous system. So it's shutting off that fight or flight nervous system. Eliminates antigen and latent infections. It's washing out stuff that's there and reduces the immune response. So it's trying to calm the immune system down, because with something like Lyme's disease, it's really easy for it to become overactive. The suggested duration is 1 to 3 years for the protocol. So I think this gives people a big wake-up call. If you are looking for oils to fix everything in a week or a month, and you've got something heavy like Lyme's disease, you need to like hold up. You can help yourself, but it's going to take some dedication and it's going to take some time. So you still have the options of using the oils. They're still there. And, you know, oftentimes they are better for people than some of the antibiotics that are out there. Everybody's different, and I'm trying to be compliant here, but I just wanted to show you that there are some significant recommendations that go along with that for Lyme's disease, and there's a significant amount of time that goes along with it for Lyme's disease. So it lets you be real right up front, so you're not expecting things to go away in a month and then, you know, they're not. They're still there. Other heavy hitters, when it talks about diseases like polio, that's on there, 1 to 5 years. Cancer, 1 to 3 years. ADD, ADHD, that's 6 months than is needed. So you're really like front loading the system with a lot of this stuff to help activate the parasympathetic nervous response, that rest and digest, induce a more calm and focused mental state, and it has to be sustained for 6 months or more. Have you guys seen this book before? Do you use it now?
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah. Did you ever look at the durations like that?
Sorry?
Yeah. Did you look at the durations before?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I just love that.
I have several friends that have cancer right now, so yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
It's hard to know how to introduce
Mm-hmm.
this concept, because my experience has been once people are diagnosed, most people have a tendency to hold tight to the original professional who diagnosed them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to think outside of that box. They're just like, move ahead with that person, and it's, you know what I mean? So it's just,
Yeah.
it takes the right person who's willing to say, I'll try other things, because, you know, the regular medical field isn't helping me that much.
Yeah. And I think a safe place to start with cancer patients is, how can I help you with the side effects of your chemo? Because if they haven't decided that they want a natural method to try, you're probably not going to be the person who's going to convince them. And this is nothing against you or anyone else, but you know, if I were like, oh, I'm going to go by what my oncologist said and I'm going to get chemo, and then somebody came up to me and said, why don't you go to Mexico and get coffee enemas? I would be like, are you crazy? Like, I would have to figure that out on my own. So I think a really safe way is to say, okay, are you having like some nausea with your chemo treatments, or are you tired? You know, let's look at some other ways I can help support you through these treatments. And I have a dear friend who's been battling pancreatic cancer for 5 years, and she's back on her chemo treatments, and she's got her ginger with her for her chemo treatments. So that for her is like the safe thing for her to do.
All right, that was some pretty awesome stuff. I'm getting to where I sometimes will look at 2 books or maybe all 3 of these books to see what the recommendations are. And I'm always seeing, sometimes I look at it as not a conflict, but just a difference of opinion, difference of recipes. And sometimes I just look at what each book suggests, and I think about the oils involved and which ones I know my body responds better to. So this kind of helps me kind of figure out how I should put the blends together, which oils I should use for the blends.
Absolutely.
Well, this was great, Lauren. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right, I hope you guys found this beneficial tonight. I know I learned a few things, and something I'm going to do with my iTobi scans is dig a little bit deeper than to just read what those scan reports come back. Finding out that with Elaine, to go back to that story, she was having some intestinal issues, and one of the oils that came back was petitgrain, and petitgrain, to my knowledge, was basically like the man's lavender, right? It had all the kind of similar constituents as lavender. So I really didn't understand why petitgrain was one of the ones that came up. And that's the one Lauren said, hey, let's open up the book and let's dive a little deeper. And come to find out, it was the reason why it came up is because it helps with intestinal spasming. And that's when the lights went, oh, that's why that oil came up. So big learning lesson for us was that take the time to really dive in just a little bit to figure out why those oils come up. And it might paint a better picture for you or make more sense for you. So thanks, Lauren. I really appreciate your time and schooling us tonight. So
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So it's always a pleasure. Real briefly, you were talking about autism and Lyme disease. Lo and behold, our March class here at our house is going to be on autism, and in April, Angel is giving a class on Lyme's disease, because that's something that she's been battling with. Took her a while to figure some things out. So those are just a couple of upcoming classes that are going to happen here at our house, and there'll be some additional classes coming out too, because Rebecca Stortz is going to start doing classes here the second Thursday of every month. So she did a class last week on day before Valentine's Day, and it went over. She did a phenomenal job. So looking forward to having more of her classes too. So that's kind of what's coming down the pipe. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Lauren, you're awesome. I appreciate your knowledge, and
You're too kind.
You're taking the time to share with us. It's just, we love having you as part of our group, and just very appreciative to have you here. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes,
So
thank you, Lauren.
I will go
You're so
ahead
welcome.
and get this uploaded to Facebook, and I'll also email it out to folks if you want it, so you can share it with your friends. So thanks. Have a good night. You guys are awesome, and we will catch up again soon.
Feel better.
Thanks. Good night.
All right,
Thanks, Angela.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.